So apparently there's a story going around saying that the PlayStation 5 can actually play PlayStation 3 games. And we're going to look into that today though, man. But before we get started with this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, notification bell, like, comment some on the video, and help me get to 10K subs. Road to 10K subs, man. Let's get to it. So I've been seeing that the PlayStation 5 can play PlayStation 3 games, and it was discovered by a YouTuber named, let me check, a YouTuber named Lowest Logan. Shout outs to Lowest Logan. And he discovered that you can play PlayStation 3 games on the PlayStation 5. That means that there are huge possibilities that backwards compatibility can happen. But we're gonna look at an article from comicbook.com. Let's head over there right now. The PlayStation 5 can reportedly emulate PS3 games. Sony backwards compatibility excuse for PS3 games gets put to the test. And this is from Amanda K. Oates. Shout out to Amanda K. Let's see. Whenever a new console is released, players immediately want to know about backwards compatibility. After all, a gamer only has so much space, in the house for various consoles to revisit their favorites. Sony's PlayStation hasn't had the best history with backwards compatibility, and the PlayStation 5 can only officially natively run most games from the previous generation's PlayStation 4. However, recent tests suggest that emulating PS3 games on the PS5 is possible and may even become an official part of the PlayStation 5 library. What this means is that now this opens the door, if this is true, this opens the door to be able to play PlayStation 3 games and possibly PlayStation 2, and games going back, But to me, I kind of know why Sony has been saying this whole time that it can't be fully backwards compatibility. And I feel like I'm gonna call a spade when I see it though, but we're gonna get back to that later though. We're gonna go back to the article. For a good while, bringing PlayStation 3 games to the PS5 natively was considered impossible thanks to the specific technology used in the console. However, a YouTuber by the name of Lowest Logan, shout out to Lowest Logan, has found a way to emulate PlayStation 3 games on the PS5. A real big if true moment for gamers who yearn to revisit their PlayStation 3 favorites without shopping the resale market for a console that may or may not work upon arrival. The video is titled, "I ran PS3 games on PS5 Silicone to prove Sony wrong," and it shows Logan undergoing the tech experiment using the AMD BC250 and PS5 Silicone to run PS3 games. He explains his process in depth at the beginning, then puts the hardware to the test. He plugs in the PS3 controller and gets to work emulating Gran Turismo 5 Prologue, followed by Little Big Planet 3. So I'm sure there's a video flying around somewhere. So we're gonna go look at the video on. We're gonna go to, I guess, his YouTube, and we're gonna see what he's talking about. Let's head over there right now. All right, shout out to Lowest Logan.
This right here is probably one of the strangest pieces of computer hardware that I own. It looks kind of like a graphics card. It has a fan duct tape to the end of it, and it gets its power from an 8-pin PCIe power connector. It's not until you look just a little bit closer and notice the full complement of USB ports, DisplayPort, Ethernet, and an internal NVMe slot that you realize this thing just looks like an ordinary PC. But dig inside just a little bit further and there's nothing very ordinary about it at all. As it turns out, under this heatsink lies the exact same silicon as you would find in a regular launch model PlayStation 5.
That's
complete
great.
With 16 gigabytes.
So you mean to tell me that this has been inside the PlayStation, something similar to this has been inside the PlayStation 5 this whole time? See, I'm gonna tell you, after we finish watching this, I'm gonna tell you exactly why Sony has been given this excuse that backwards compatibility isn't possible for all games for the PlayStation 5.
Of GDDR6 memory, and as far as I know, I'm the only one that's been able to play games on it using modern Linux. And the story behind why this thing exists and why you can buy them for basically nothing right now is nothing short of fascinating. You see, AMD makes a lot of CPUs and SoCs, and you're probably aware that Sony is a pretty large customer of theirs. The problem is yields aren't always perfect when you're manufacturing millions of chips a year, and some of these CPUs that are made for the console manufacturers just don't work properly. Some of them have bad CPU cores that can lock up when running code,
Okay.
or they might have broken GPUs, so they're no good for playing games. And any of these chips that end up having too many defects are basically worthless because Sony isn't going to start selling PS5s with broken CPU cores.
Okay,
now, if
that
only
makes
there was
sense.
a group of people buying up just about every single GPU on the market that we could sell these otherwise worthless APUs to, is what ASRock said when they apparently saw the conundrum AMD had been caught up in, and in turn, the two companies made this beautiful piece of engineering,
crazy.
the AMD BC250 Bitcoin mining rack. And just one of these racks contains a total of 12 BC250 blades, with each blade holding the PS5 SoC and 16 gigabytes of RAM, as I mentioned earlier, with a couple of compromises. The biggest of which is the fact that 2 CPU cores have been disabled per blade, leaving us with 6 CPU cores and 12 threads, and out of the 32 GPU compute units on the die, only 24 of them are enabled, which scales down performance by quite a bit. Windows won't boot properly on it, and pretty much every Linux distribution you try to run will either fall back to software rendering or just lock up the entire.
So initially, you're taking a gamble if you do decide to get this piece of hardware to put in your PS5. But he's saying it works, so we'll see.
System during boot, so you can't really do much with these blades out of the box. But finally, after a few months of having this thing just sit on my desk, I came across a post on Reddit where a user had claimed to have this GPU working with games inside a Linux distro by downgrading to an older Linux kernel, which saw the built-in GPU as a regular Navi 10 device. This discovery was followed by several nearly sleepless nights in a Discord group chat experimenting with every single other outdated Linux ISO I could find, and ultimately attempts to bisect the AMD GPU driver to find whatever change broke the GPU's functionality in newer kernel versions. To make a long story short, we ended up making a patch to revert a change in the graphics driver that completely broke the PS5 APU in kernel version 6.5, meaning we could finally use a slightly newer Linux LTS 6.6 kernel, along with a patched version of the Mesa package, which is the library that provides implementations of graphics APIs like Vulkan and OpenGL. So if you're savvy with Arch Linux, we have all of our package builds with the patches we made on the AUR, so make a search for BC250 and you can build those if you have a blade to test with. And with all that finally figured out, I had a pretty cursed blade-shaped PS5 computer running Linux, and we even went through the effort to install a GameScope session. So at the risk of sounding like clickbait, I guess I turned my PS5 into a Steam Deck. But what I really want to do here is try to figure out how far we can push this hardware to see what exactly a PS5 is theoretically capable of. The very first test I ran on here was actually Minecraft, and it ran perfectly fine. In a single-player survival world, I was getting nearly 300 frames per second average at 1440p once I had generated a few chunks, but in all honesty, that's not super interesting. Minecraft can run just about anything these days.
You gotta play something stronger than that.
I decided to run a Passmark CPU Mark test for Linux to try to get a feel for what kind of desktop hardware might be comparable, and given this is a Zen 2 CPU with 6 CPU cores, the multi-core score of 13,800 puts it right in line with a Ryzen 5 2600X, which I guess isn't really all that impressive, and the added memory latency caused by the use of GDDR6 on the CPU side doesn't really help, but given I have 12 of these sitting in a metal box, it's not all too bad. Either way, next I wanted to get into emulation. Naturally, in order to live up to the title of this video, I needed to show something related to PS3, so I went ahead and grabbed a copy of RPCS3. The rationale here is that in the past, Sony, and therefore many self-proclaimed experts, have stated that PS3 emulation is simply not possible on the PS5, as it's just too computationally expensive. And obviously that's just
Sony, y'all got some explaining to do
if you don't buy new games, but I need an excuse to show this off anyway. Gran Turismo 5 Prologue is hands down my favorite entry in the Gran Turismo series, and I've tested it quite a few times over the years on RPCS3, so I have to admit, watching it run this well is just a testament to the incredible amount of effort that has been put into improving this emulator. Everything ran fine at 60 frames a second, with only the occasional shader glitch here and there, but it was a lot better than I expected. And just for fun, I cranked up the resolution to 1440p, which still maintains somewhat playable frame rates. One thing I noticed at this point was that for whatever reason, the AMD GPU driver only sees a single memory clock state that can be applied to this GPU, which is a measly 400 megahertz.
Sony, y'all got some explaining to do. End of the day, man, the reason why, allegedly, that I believe Sony is telling people that the PlayStation 5 cannot do backwards compatibility for PlayStation 3 games and so forth is because if you sell people a system that can play older games that people can just natively go buy, like I guess physically, like at a pawn shop or at a retro gaming store, Sony doesn't see those profits at all. So they're not going to be able to make money off of that. I feel like Sony wants to be able to control the market of retro gaming and control the market of older games being re-released so they can throw them inside, let's see, you know, packs, like a game packs, whatever. The same way they did Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection and Capcom Fighting Collection 2 and other collection games. Sony wants to be able to repackage these games and put it inside of a collection so they can make more money. So from a business standpoint, I understand why Sony is saying that it can't or whatever, but at the end of the day, man, this is a $1 billion, if not $1 trillion corporation. So you would think that there are a bunch of smart-minded people within Sony that knew how to do this already. Like, it's not like that there's a bunch of just regular people sitting at Sony, whether in those departments, that don't know what they're doing. So I'm pretty sure this video that we just watched probably wasn't new to them at all. I'm pretty sure that they knew this whole time, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't make Sony extra money, why would they push for it? Why would they volunteer leaving money off the table, you know, to its Sony customers, which I understand, but it kind of sucks though, because a lot of us, you know, PlayStation players actually do want to do backwards compatibility. As much as these developers and, you know, game companies or whatever look down upon emulation because they can't make money off emulation. Like, I just don't get why doesn't Sony just, I don't know, make an emulator, make a new emulator, whatever, charge for the emulator so we can play these older games. If you want to like that, I feel like that'll solve the retro gaming market. So you don't have to keep repackaging these games though, but they wouldn't make money though. So it's like, make a new emulator that people can buy and then sell the games on the emulator. If you really want to go that route, if you really want to make that much money, Sony or whatever. And yeah, then everybody's happy. We can all play retro gaming and stuff from the Sony catalog. But yeah though, man, that if you want to look at the rest of the video, the link will be in the description. If you want to read the article about this matter, the link is also in the description. And I believe articles from comicbook.com and videos from Lowest Logan on YouTube. But yeah though, man, let me know how y'all feel about, man, the PlayStation 5 being able to run PlayStation 3 games via emulation. Let me know how y'all feel about that, and if you had to have the hardware to put it together, would you do that? Would you be up for that though? I know I would be. But you already know what to do, man. It's Architect Mr. J with another video. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, notification bell, like, comment, something. Until next time, peace.